Welcome to DCU Daily. We are here to talk about some major news in the realm of DC. The biggest thing being, we did talk about the Batman Part 2 a couple days ago, and a lot of Penguin stuff, a lot of epic crime saga, and so now we're going to be talking about the filming date, as well as the fact that there was maybe even a tidbit that was dropped in terms of Joel Kinnaman coming back as Rick Flag Jr., even though we are bringing in Rick Flag Sr., played by Frank Grillo, into Superman and Peacemaker and all these other projects. But it seems like Joel Kinnaman might be back. And then this, as well as, talking about more Superman and Lois talk, possibly, and more talk when it comes to Comic-Con. Well, here I am joined by Bridget. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, John. How are you?
Good as I can ever be, I guess. So, the first bit of news, it seems like we are going to be getting what it seems like we're doing is similar to what James Gunn is doing with Superman. We are kind of getting that with the Batman, and it looks like they will be filming in 2025. Now, we haven't gotten a specific date yet. It's just that starting in 2025. It could be in January, it could be in December. We don't know. We do
Right.
know, obviously, that it's coming out in October, and we October of 2026, but it looks like
Right.
that they are going to be filming in 2025. So I feel like that's kind of brings in some intriguing topics in regards to like the theory of when it will actually film and
Mhm.
all of that. So as someone who is a little bit, I'm a little bit more aware of the filmmaking side, but in terms of like general audience who doesn't really like care about that kind of thing, what are your thoughts on this this development of filming in 2025?
Yeah, no, it's really exciting to hear that they actually have plans in place and that the production's starting um, to really make it come to life. And also exciting too if you are an actor, and I know some actor friends as well that when we have like one of our favorite movies coming out, we try and look at that extra work, see where they're filming, and if you're a huge fan, maybe you could actually be a part of it. So yeah, it's just exciting all around that they're starting to put that together. And I was also reading through that article, just hearing Colin Farrell talk about it because he's,
Hmm.
coming back as the Penguin in this. I think he's gonna. It sounds like a lot of it's maybe centered around his character a bit, but just talked about how. I guess from the writer's room, it sounds like it's going to be pretty dark. Definitely a hard R rating for this one. You have any
Yeah,
thoughts
most
about
definitely.
that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it seems like, that's what the Batman kind of was.
Right.
Like the sort of darker, edgier sort of, vibe to the whole thing. And obviously Grounder, I mean, we kind of got that with the Nolan films, but with Matt Reeves, it seems like he's kind of going for more of like not totally over the top, but like more slightly more of a comic edge. But
Mhm.
now it seems like so we have that comic book edge, so it's like it's still different from the Nolan films, and then we're getting this like super new Batman and
Mhm.
who is a little bit established. So we're getting all of this. Now in terms of, what when do you think it's gonna start filming? Do you think it's gonna start filming with an October 20
26. Yeah.
getting when do you think it's going to be earlier? Do you think it's going to be later? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I guess it really depends too. I mean, it's now August, almost August 2024, so they've got time. I predict kind of maybe around springtime into next summer. That's just my theory. Um, they could do it very early January, but I have a feeling they'll probably push it maybe to at
Hmm.
least April. That's just my vibes, just knowing how production goes.
Yeah. Right. Because I mean, we still haven't gotten an update on the script. That's a major thing.
Right.
That's a major kind of like the last time we've heard is Matt Reeves is still, writing it. So I have a
Right.
strong feeling that they're probably gonna go
Be
for around like maybe around like spring 2025,
mhm.
maybe leaning into
Maybe into
summer.
the summer.
I don't
Yeah.
remember when the last it would be a good gauge, yeah, a good gauge to figure out like how long the last ones was and how long that took. So yeah,
Right.
it's definitely
You can do the math.
a very interesting development. Yeah, so
Yeah,
obviously,
sure.
but it all depends, like, because last time we had like there, COVID was more of a like a prominent threat. I mean, I
Totally.
hate to say something so like that, but and then Rob Pattinson also got COVID, so there was some delays
Right.
there. So
Absolutely.
obviously, in post COVID, obviously we're still taking precautions, but that it's a
Right.
little bit lesser than what it was. So I'm curious how that like affects things as well. But yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like we're on the up and up, especially when the
Yeah.
last time we heard about the Batman, people were like,
I know.
is this canceled? Is he still
Yeah.
working on the script? But the fact that we have like some type of filming, so it seems like that's definitely very exciting in terms of, that aspect.
Yes, of
But yeah,
course. And I mean,
but with,
I even
yeah, of course, yeah.
yeah, even now I have heard a couple, I hate to say this, but I have heard a couple people even now saying like, "Oh, I had COVID a couple weeks ago." So the crazy thing is, I guess it is still present
Right.
to an extent, but definitely you're right, not as it was. And yeah, hopefully as long as there's no more surprises in the future, I think everything should go according to plan.
Hmm. Yes, most definitely. But in terms of this film, I didn't totally love the first one, but I'm curious with how this will go. I just wish we got a little bit more in terms of like news, in terms of like casting, who's in
Right.
it,
Yeah.
obviously, because I think the most we got, obviously, Robert Pattinson's coming back. We did get that that Colin Farrell is coming back as Oswald
Mhm.
Cobblepot in Batman 2. It's unknown if it's like a smaller cameo or if it's like kind of a
Right.
background character or if he's the main villain. We have talked about this
Right.
many times on the show on if he would be a villain. Do you think he would be a villain in terms of what we got in the first one, the show we're getting, and then now his appearance in this one? Do you think it's a little bit more or a little bit less?
Yeah, I mean, the way that they talk about it, it does seem like they're kind of setting him up as a villain in this next one. Um, I've always considered him a villain, so I think it's hard to imagine that he's not for me at least. But that's how I think it's going to go is that he's kind of, here picking up
Hmm.
from the end of the first movie and with the way that Gotham is kind of taking control of that situation. It's an opportunity for him, I think. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just what I'm thinking. And
Um,
yeah, and it makes sense too that, I know with the first one, I heard a lot of mixed uh reviews on what people thought about it, especially because it was much darker tone.
mhm.
But I do, they're following along with that, going back into that hard R rating. At least I do feel like they're being consistent because I think for me, at least, I hate when you see a movie and then the sequel is just so far off of those vibes. So yeah, it'll at
Right.
least it's
But
continuous.
James Gunn is letting Matt Reeves do his thing essentially. He's like, because I know a lot of people were like really, mainly James Gunn haters were kind of like, oh, James Gunn is going to cancel this. It's grounded. He wants to do fantastical. The Batman is they're totally not going to deal with this. But I think, um, I think that obviously it's still happening, but I think James Gunn is more like respectability when it comes to the filmmaker. That's why he didn't take the
Mhm.
role in terms of like like in terms of directing Superman, and then in terms of taking the role as someone who's like kind of like a CEO, because he's like, I don't know business stuff. I'm just a comic book fan. I'm a director. I'm a filmmaker. But once they were like, oh, Peter Safran is going to help you, he's going to do the business production side. He's like, oh, I'm fully in. And the fact he's
Absolutely.
like doing all this stuff in terms of like only greenlighting projects once these, once they get a script, once these filmmakers and writers sign on, it shows that he cares about that filmmaking process. So
Yeah.
I think like I don't think he's gonna mess with Matt Reeves. He's just gonna be like, this is your universe. I don't want to fuck with that. So, by all means do that. But
Yeah.
in terms of James Gunn, he's just going to follow his own stuff, but like respect the filmmaker. But
Right.
in terms
And it's, I think,
of uh
yeah.
yeah, sorry, continue. What were you
Oh,
going to say?
sorry. Yeah, it's hard to sometimes talk with the connection, but yeah, I think it's the smartest way to just to delegate. You do what you know,
Hmm.
and don't go beyond that. And I think it's really
Hmm.
the best kind of teamwork to blend, and that's probably what's going to produce the best stuff anyway. So it's exciting to see.
Yeah, it's so yeah, because I think James Gunn I mean, he dealt with the tyrannical House of Mouse. So especially when he got fired and then he brought back and then like he was given
Yeah.
his movie and then like all that. So I think he's like, okay, I know Marvel and that works for them, but I'm gonna do something different. And
Right.
that's mad. I
And
feel
that's
like
what
that
you need.
earns a little
Yeah.
respect. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, so but in terms of James Gunn, the next major thing we'll be talking about is the fact that it seems like Joel Kinnaman is coming back to the role of Rick Flag Jr. Now, it was
Right.
revealed that on Peter Soleil's Instagram that he was thanking a bunch of people. Now you could see it here. That he just wrapped the first week directing Peacemaker, and he thanks obviously John Cena, Daniel Brooks, Steve Agee, people that were essentially confirmed. But the name and Tim Meadows, who was also confirmed a couple weeks back, about a month ago, actually, he was also going to have a role. And then Frank Grillo. But the name that is interesting is Joel Kinnaman. And someone luckily snapped a pic of this
Mhm.
because when I went back to Instagram to see what happened, Soleil or his team or whoever removed Joel Kinnaman's name. So that brings the theory. Now, is he really coming back? Was it a mistype? Was it this? I think
Mhm.
that Mr. Soleil or Solette, however you pronounce his name, I think he goofed. I think he or someone on his team kind of screwed up. And now it seems like we kind of pretty much got a confirmation that essentially Joel Kinnaman is coming back, especially if you're trying to cover that up. So, someone who's only a little bit familiar with the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and the character, how do you think he'll be brought back? And do you think it would work organically, or I'm just curious?
Yeah, no, I think your theory makes probably the most sense that he's needed for flashbacks or for maybe
Hmm.
times in the past. It's just the most obvious. But I was looking through some funny theories on Reddit. Um, one of them saying like, what if he comes back as like a doppelganger of the original and is just like there for another reason? Like who knows? Could happen. And I
Yeah,
guess anything's
bring in the multiverse theory
plausible
because yeah,
because I
because
mean,
James Gunn has been a little bit vague with the continuity. Um,
right.
So a lot of people are with Peacemaker being more comedy driven. It seems like they might be going for the comedy angle with the multiverse and how they
Right.
might it'll be a variant of Peacemaker. It'll be our Peacemaker, but he's on like a new world and like Rick Flag Jr. is still alive, but like maybe like
Yeah.
Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. is also like from that world and he gets transported over, but it's like everyone's alive, but Frank Grillo still wants revenge because his version is still dead. So there's also that
Right.
theory. I know, very,
Yeah,
very silly, very, very confusing, but that is also
what
another
could
theory.
happen?
It's probably mainly just for, flashbacks, or they bring in another variant. Those are probably the two biggest ones. Like probably Frank
Mhm,
Grillo's like having like it seems like he's gonna maybe not necessarily be the villain, but he will be the antagonist of season two.
mhm.
And he's gonna be on this war-torn revenge path against Peacemaker for essentially, killing his son, because God knows
Right.
that's a big, big, big driving force with a lot of
Or
characters.
yeah.
Deathstroke is another big one, in terms of
Mhm.
against the Titans. But yeah, he is going on this war-torn revenge path and all this other stuff. So I'm very intrigued with what they'll do with Peacemaker season two, but the fact that they are confirming he's coming back, I would like to see him again, because I think that one of the few good things about the original Suicide Squad, not James Gunn version, was Joel
Mhm.
Kinnaman as Rick Flag, and then you know, um, oh, what's his name? Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. So it's like
Yeah.
if they could bring him back, that would be awesome. But I think
Oh, yeah.
him being, I mean, anything can happen. Like, it's comics. Nobody stays dead. I mean, Barry Allen was dead for 23 years and look how that turned out. Um, but in terms of all
Very
this,
true.
would you be excited to see Joel Kinnaman come back? Like, even if it is just for a flashback sequence? I don't know if he's like, oh, you liked the character, or if he's just eye candy or something. I don't know. I'm curious if you're like,
Well, no, you're right. I did like him in the original. He's a great actor. And yes, it does seem the most logical, I guess, that he's probably going to be flashbacks. But honestly, I wouldn't be upset if it was more than that. If he does come back in a different way, I think
Mhm.
people would appreciate it. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he's
most
he's
definitely.
yeah, he's a fun one to
I mean, look
watch.
at that image. That's just badass right there. I love that image.
I know.
And I love like
You're
his
making me
costuming
sweat
is just
more.
hilarious. Yeah, why is it suddenly so like hot in here? This is crazy.
I
Um
know.
but
Should have
yeah, I
turned the
think
fan.
that's definitely a really, really big development between that and like Batman and Peacemaker, like two very big things for two different universes under the DC banner.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's really awesome, because I would like to see more of him. I think,
I think it's yeah.
no, no, no,
I think
please
it's so
continue.
I think it's so funny too that they post that and then like try and edit it, but like it's the internet, dude. Like
It's the
we know.
internet. People already got screen grabs. It says under the Instagram post edited. And
Oh my
so it's like you're
gosh.
not hiding it. Fans are eagle eye. We're looking
Yeah.
for all of this stuff. We're getting
It's a
this. We're
dip
getting this. We're
yeah.
getting this. We are
I know.
always looking for
That's
every
that
solitary thing.
that's the
So,
one rule I remember learning in technology was like once it's out on the internet, it you will never get it back. Like that's what our teacher would tell us all the time. So
you'll never get it back. No.
it's just yeah, yeah. It's a hard lesson to learn, but
Um,
it's yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of great things about the Suicide Squad. Joel Kinnaman was definitely one of them. Massive
Yeah.
improvement in terms of all these characters,
Mhm.
but yeah, in terms of like other really good news, we did finally
Mhm.
get a poster
Oh,
for
yeah.
a Superman and Lois. This really cool like art, like drawn poster, and I think this is
That's
just going to show us a really great and epic season. We did the other day, we showed some tidbits from that sneak peek that was released at Comic-Con,
right.
where it showed him fighting Doomsday,
Mhm.
which I'm really stoked for. Even the most general audiences know of the death of Superman. That was like the biggest story of like the
Right.
early '90s in comics.
Yeah.
They're killing Superman, and it's like this whole thing.
I know.
So yeah, and I think with how they're doing it here is really interesting. Now, do
Mhm.
you watch the show? Do you know anything about the show, or?
Um, I don't watch the show, but I do know, the general story.
Mhm.
And obviously also know how he dies.
Yeah.
But I know that it takes place with their family and their kids, and so it's kind of like seeing the next generation, I believe, kind of
Mhm.
pick up after his death is what it sounds like the next season's gonna be,
Yeah, it
if I'm
seems
not
like
wrong.
that it seems like kind of like that is the case. It seems like, at least my theory is, most of the season he's probably going to be dead. And then his family's left to pick up the pieces. Jordan,
Right.
his son with
The aftermath.
superpowers, just wants to fucking kill Lex Luthor, and he just wants revenge for his dad. So
Yeah.
he just wants that. And then meanwhile, his mother and his brother John are just trying to grieve. They're trying to move on. And it's just like, just
Right.
let it go, man. Like, just let
Yeah.
it. We're
Yeah.
trying to like live here. But obviously it is called now, in hindsight, the death and return of Superman. So Superman is going to come back. I'm curious how they're going
Right.
to implement the comic book
Yeah.
bits, if they're going to have like other Supermen. I mean, we already have a Superboy technically, and then we have there's also the other characters from the comics with like Cyborg Superman,
Mhm.
and there was, I mean, we do also have John Henry Irons, which is definitely, I hope maybe we can get like a thing with him, because I mean, in the comics, after Superman died, he etched the super, insignia on his chest. So maybe we can finally
Right.
get that. I think that could be
Yeah.
really
Oh
awesome.
yeah, that would be
Um
yeah, I agree.
that that would be awesome. Like, I would love to see that. And then
Yeah.
uh because that was like one of the big things of like the like post Superman, is like all these super beings are coming out of the woodwork.
Right.
So I think we're gonna get that a little bit. And I'm super stoked for Michael Cudlitz as Lex Luthor. Now, I don't know, do you have like a favorite Lex Luthor, or do you, are just kind of
Um,
like, I'm kind of done with this guy, I don't want to deal with him now?
yeah, yeah, I don't particularly have like one that I love the most now.
Yeah, that's fair. Even
It's never really
though
my
I will
favorite to
say,
watch anyway.
yeah, that was Lex Luthor. I feel like he's kind of, driven into the dirt a little bit.
Yeah.
But even then, I think like as long as he's good, he's good. It
Yeah.
is a
Does
little
his
bit
job.
like, a little bit eye roll. I don't want to say eye rolling, but like a little bit, you know, it's like, okay, they're doing him again. But I feel like with what they're doing here, they're essentially doing Batman versus Superman, but done right. You had Lex
Mhm.
Luthor creating Doomsday. He kills Superman. But the thing is, what makes it work here is like there's 3 seasons of buildup that makes us care about these
Right.
characters, rather than,
Exactly.
Superman dying in
Ex
the next movie.
right.
So
Which
I
which I
feel like that.
actually
And
do.
Michael Cudlitz, when he was making
Yeah.
Superman, oh, sorry, what?
Sorry. No, yes, and I was gonna say too,
No,
I
you're
think what's gonna
good.
make this 4th season probably very interesting to watch is just, like, to see, and that's the thing, it's like you think you're watching this for Superman, but to see a whole season where he's probably not there and we're just watching a lot of the emotional impact that he has on
Hmm.
the other characters, I think is the most powerful thing, and it's the deprivation of him, I think that's gonna make us,
Right.
over this whole season, by the time he comes back, I think it's gonna really have that build up too of like, oh my God, yeah, he's back because we had to feel what it felt like to be without him for
Right.
so long.
Yeah.
It's very
I
smart
think
that
that's a
they're
really good. That
gonna
was
draw
one
it
of
out.
the biggest parts. Yeah, that was definitely, even though it is a shorter season, it's only 10 episodes as opposed to the 16 and 13 that other seasons are. I think that's
Mhm.
still a good amount of time to like really showcase, especially when the season premiere, which is premiering on October 17th, by the way, it is going to be a 2-hour season premiere. So essentially, we're going to be getting like a whole movie, even with
Yeah,
commercials. It's like gonna be like 90 to 100 minutes. So that's really awesome.
yeah,
Like, I'm super stoked for that.
yeah,
We're finally getting
yeah,
like this big epic um
right.
fight scene
Event.
between Doomsday and Superman, when we kind of got like the first bit at the end of season 3. Spoilers, but like this is massive
Mhm.
spoilers for Superman and Lois. But
Mhm.
we are finally getting this big epic fight. That sneak peek, just 3 minutes, was like, holy shit, that
I
was
know.
awesome.
It looked
Let's
epic.
go.
Yes,
Uh,
I can't wait to see this for a whole 2
yeah, I
hours.
love, and yeah, and I will say the effects look pretty good. I know CW gets a lot of shit, but like it is still a co-production between them and Max. So the effects, I will say, look pretty good considering. Doomsday's face looks a little weird, but I will say the effects look great.
Yeah,
So
for
that's
real.
really exciting. But yeah, I think I'm really excited for it. I would say catch up on the show. Try to,
Yes, I know. I
try
do
to
have to
watch
do
it
that, but
because it's
yeah, before I've until October
it's a
17th,
great
and
time.
I'm gonna catch up.
Yes, so binge it.
Perfect.
But however, it's not the only Superman and Lois news we have today.
That's
Not just
right.
the really great
Yeah.
poster, which you can still see right here, but what we do have is instead they're teasing a role for Tom Kavanagh. Now, if
Mhm.
you don't know, if you're not entrenched in the Arrowverse, if you're just like, I only watch Superman and Lois and that's it, which fair in terms of how the Arrowverse was at the end. But Tom Cavanagh famously played one of the two versions of Reverse Flash on the show,
Mhm.
as well as playing pretty much every iteration of Harrison Wells across the multiverse. So they did tease that he does have a major role here, and
Right.
how they're kind of, teasing like a lot of different things. It's going to be more substantial, and he's going to appear throughout the season, and it will be very emotional, full of action, and giving a fitting goodbye to many characters, which is all we can really hope for. But the
Mhm.
biggest thing is Tom Cavanagh, and that's where I'm like, huh, that's really interesting. Because I know there was like a rumor floating around that he was going to appear, as well as the fact he is directing an episode as well. He did direct some episodes across Arrowverse shows. I think he
Mhm.
directed a couple Flash episodes, I think a Legends of Tomorrow episode, and maybe a couple others. But he did direct some episodes. He's directing one here, and he's going to appear here. Now, personally, as someone who watched the Arrowverse, I don't think they're gonna pull the rug and it's like, oh no, he actually is reverse. I don't think they're gonna do that. I don't think they're gonna do Harrison Wells either. I think he might be a
Yeah.
totally new character. Um, if I were to guess, I think he might be this might be a totally brave thing, but like we were talking about how, in the light of the death of Superman in the comics, we got all these new Superman. We have a Superboy with Jordan,
Mhm.
kind of. We have a
Right.
Steel with John Henry Irons. We don't have Cyborg Superman. So my
Right.
theory is that Tom Cavanagh is going to be playing either Cyborg Superman or the Eradicator. So, well, actually,
Oh,
no, not the Eradicator, because we got that with Tal Rowe in season one. So I'm willing to bet that he's playing Cyborg Superman. What are your thoughts on that? That he's going to be playing
yeah.
this big character attributed to this
Yeah.
storyline?
I mean, they said major role, and I do feel like that is a major role. And I could see him as it. So I think that's a pretty good educated wish. I
Yeah,
think
it
that's pretty
definitely,
good.
because they pretty much have all the other ones. Eradicator, they already did. I almost forgot about that. They technically did do the Eradicator. It was much different,
Mhm.
but it was Tal Rowe slash Morgan Edge in season one. Again, spoiler alert.
Mhm.
But in terms of all these other characters, we do have this one that we don't have, and I don't think it would be like totally out there, because we
No.
have a lot of like Kryptonian aspects in terms of these villains. We had Tal Rowe,
Yeah.
who was his brother in season one. We had Bizarro from Bizarro World in season two, who became Doomsday. And now I think they might bring, they have like, I think what maybe Doomsday, maybe he doesn't kill Doomsday. And Lex Luthor's like, okay, I have to take care of this. And so he
Mhm.
makes Cyborg Superman out of
Mhm.
like either Superman's dead body, or like he uses like his DNA and he makes Cyborg Superman, and then he
Yeah.
goes off to fight Doomsday so that Doomsday could be like dead, but then it goes awry because, all that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Yeah.
he does say in the trailer, Lex Luthor, he's like, Superman is dead. Can we please just revel in the moment? So my theory is like one of his assistants or
Mm.
whatever is talking to him like, what about Doomsday? And he's like, we'll think about that later. But for right now, I want to enjoy Superman being dead. So
Mhm.
that's my theory. I think what they'll do is they'll bring like pieces like a DNA of Superman. They're going to combine him with a
Right.
cyborg, and that's who Tom Cavanaugh is playing. Or he might
Yeah.
be more of like a mystery role. But I think that would be really cool
Yeah.
to bring
I
Cyborg
agree.
Superman into that.
I hope that you are manifesting something here because I
I
think
do hope so.
actually the more that I think about it, actually I do feel like he like looking back at some of the comics, I feel like he would fit that role really well anyways, just kind of his
Hmm.
build and his look, which
Hmm.
is hard to believe he still looks so good because I think he might be in his 60s, but he is whatever he's doing,
Yeah, no,
it's
Tom
working
Cavanaugh's
out
looking great.
well because yeah, it's hard to believe he is also still in the eye candy category. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I hope you're right,
I
and I
mean,
hope
he
he
still has, yeah, that we do see him in that role. I think that would be a really awesome role. And I
yeah,
think
and it
because he
makes
still
sense
has like
too.
a pretty good build from playing Reverse Flash. He's
Right,
played a superhero or supervillain before, so it would make sense that he would kind of play something similar and would
right.
play that role. So I think that would be really awesome. I think, I don't know why Tom Cavanaugh specifically. Maybe like, oh, you played a really good villain here. Why might as well play a villain here? And he's like, all right, fine. And so he's like
Yeah,
doing that, or like maybe he's like more eclectic, like kind of in the background. Maybe he's like,
mhm,
kind of like a background villain, more so kind of like not a Lex Luthor type, but like something just like not that, but like something that's like kind of creepy, I guess.
yeah,
But I think Cyborg Superman just kind of makes the most sense because
it
of
does,
like
and
who
it's
he
yeah,
who he has played in the
been
past,
right.
and then
Yeah,
who he's known for, essentially. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's in his wheelhouse,
Um
and
but
it makes sense.
exactly.
No,
Most
I
definitely.
pick up what you're putting down.
Now before Yes, so thank you for that. But a
Good.
couple more things that I wanted to mention before we head out. Just quick thing because I know a lot of people are excited about this, and keep that super train going. We're going with the other show that we have, which is now My Adventures with Superman. The left image was dropped and the right image was shown at Comic-Con. But speaking of, death of Superman characters and Superboy, we are going to be getting Superboy in My Adventures with Superman. So, do you watch this show? Or are you like kind of aware what has happened on the show, or would you be excited
I
for
don't
this at all, or are you just like, I'm not really sure?
I don't watch it. I know of it. And I think I was reading an article about yes, them dropping this new fun detail. I think the can you catch me up on the last thing that happened before this? Because I kind of forget. Something I think Supergirl.
The
Maybe I'm
thing
wrong.
is, I don't watch the show either. So the only thing I know of in terms of the show is like Supergirl was like brainwashed by Brainiac, who was like a Kryptonian invention,
Oh,
kind of like what it was in Superman the animated series. And then eventually I think they break her out of it, and then they like get a costume change and like all this stuff. So that's kind of what happens. So like Supergirl is now on their side, who's second there, recreating Abbey Road, second to the left,
yeah, yeah,
here. But so we are going to be getting, it seems like the 90s, Superboy, the best iteration of Superboy with the leather
yeah.
jacket.
I know.
But it seems like there's no casting yet. We just have this character. I think it might be a little
Yes.
bit much because it's the thing is we're getting too many Kryptonians. I feel like we got Supergirl with season 2. We got like a Brainiac thing, which was a Kryptonian thing in season 2,
Mhm.
and now we're immediately getting Superboy. Personally, I just think that's too much. It's one of the many reasons why I
Yeah.
just don't watch the show. I'm not really interested in the show.
Yeah.
So I just think that's just like too much because again, he's a character who's attributed with Death of Superman. Now, obviously, you don't have to do Death of Superman to introduce this character in this continuity, but I just feel like it's just a bit much. It's like, okay, we have to introduce a Kryptonian this season. All right, let's introduce this one. Okay, who are we introducing next season? We're gonna do Mon-El. Are we gonna
Right.
do like, even though he's a Daxamite, but like, are we gonna introduce how many people of the super family are we gonna introduce every season? It's like, all right, I feel
Right. It
like you're
becomes a bit
kind of
predictable.
overexerting your goodwill with the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets
So
tiring.
that's just my quick thoughts on that. Again, I don't watch the show. Yeah, I don't watch the show. I'm happy people like it. I mean, the thing is, I'm not really a big anime fan, so I'm not really, I don't really care about that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it is exciting for people who, I know
Yeah.
people are excited, and again, I don't watch the show, so I guess my opinion doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
But
still
it's,
think
it's a good thought to have.
it's a bit
Yeah.
much, but I think yeah. It's a bit much, but maybe they can make it work organically, like possibly.
Yeah.
But that was like a quick thing. But another quick thing is James Gunn did reveal for Harley Quinn season 5. That is
No.
4 seasons too
Crazy.
long. It is coming in November. So all 3 Harley Quinn fans that are still watching this show are gonna be stoked. Not much to say because everyone pretty much knows my complete hatred for Harley Quinn as a
Mm.
character. So,
Mm. Wow.
but
Yeah.
before we, head out, yeah, no, I know. But before we head out, we wanted to address some, fan comments. So we will be talking about this mighty big one, in terms of Glenn Powell as Batman. I'm sure you've probably heard of this, but Buster Barnes, who is a frequent watcher, thank you for that.
Well,
He's was
Buster.
saying I prefer Glenn Powell to typical fan casts of Alan Ritchson and Jensen Ackles, and then he
Mm.
goes on to explain um, Alan Ritchson and all these other characters, and he was saying how Glenn Powell could be good, but he also references another actor I've never heard of, Brandon Sklenar. I don't even know who that
Hmm.
is. Have
Let
you
me
heard
look
of
him up.
him?
I have not, but maybe I've
Um,
seen him in something.
but
I'll check.
yeah, he said he has the look, age, height, and build, and I've seen clips of him which show he can do both sides of Batman. I wouldn't be devastated if any of the mentioned actors got the role, though it's ultimately a
Oh.
wait and see. Could be smart to lock down a rising star like Powell, though. I could see it. The thing is, I've said this so many times in the past. I have not seen anything from him to make me warrant some sort of like,
Love
oh
that
yeah, he could
idea.
definitely do it. I think he could
Yeah.
do Bruce Wayne really well, but the thing is probably you need to do both characters really well. I think Jake Gyllenhaal could be really good. I think Alan Ritchson could be a good Batman, but even then, that's kind of pushing it. He's not really the best actor. I don't think he could do Bruce Wayne. Glenn Powell could do Bruce Wayne. Alan Ritchson can't do Bruce Wayne. Jensen Ackles, I think, could do both okay. I just think he's far too gritty as an actor to really do both really well, especially with the
Mhm.
version they're going with, who will be more fantastical because he's part of the DCU with all these other heroes like,
Mm.
Superman and Wonder Woman and Green Lantern and all these other characters. So having him like be a part of that, I don't think that would work. What are your thoughts on all these actors like Glenn Powell and Alan
Honestly,
Ritchson and all these guys?
it's hard because I do feel like these are all wonderful suggestions. When I think about each one, I'm like, honestly, I can see what they all bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
As Batman. I mean, I loved watching Supernatural, so I know like Jensen Ackles from that. Um, and I do feel
Mm-hmm.
like he's got that strong jawline and his line delivery. I mean, but then again, you mentioning Glenn Powell, I was like, oh, I don't know. He's been in so much like kind of sarcastic comedic stuff lately. But also I'm like, I can, when I start to envision it, I'm like, that's also a possibility. And then now looking at Brandon Sklenar, I'm looking at his photos and I'm
I
like,
just checked
okay.
him too. Yeah.
I'm like, I see that. I don't know if I can. I
Let
probably couldn't
me,
see it on my phone.
let me just share my screen real quick and then we can see
Yeah.
him. Um, but there
I
he
don't know if
is. That is
yeah.
Tim. He was in The Offer and he was in 1923. He's still on 1923 if that's still gonna go. But yeah, that's
Oh,
him.
I love that photo of him.
But yeah, he was
Just
in
looking off in the
Midway. He
distance.
was in Maplethorpe. He was in Vice. These are all in New Girl, Westworld, Walker, Independence, The
Mhm.
Offer, like stuff like that. So he has been in like some decent stuff, but he's like,
Yeah.
tried and true American. We love to see it. None of these
I
British guys,
right.
getting these roles. Like we had a British
Absolutely.
Superman, we have a British Spider-Man. Hell with this shit. I want pure blood Americans. So that's good to
Yes.
see.
There are
But I mean,
superheroes.
I haven't seen, like, the thing is, I watched Midway, but it was like years ago, so I'm not sure. Like,
Yeah.
but
I mean, just
please,
based off of looks though, when I think of like the animated series of Batman that I remember watching as a kid, I feel like he has he probably actually matches the look the most. So I honestly I feel like the best way to decide is I'd have to see all of their self tapes for this role and then
right?
I'd be like, okay. Because I feel like I also feel like it's kind of unfair sometimes to see an actor and see what they've been in and then maybe think, well, they couldn't play that role. Because sometimes I'm really pleasantly surprised to go into a movie and see someone and think, really them? And then like 20
Yeah,
minutes into it, I'm like, holy crap, no wonder they got this because
yeah,
they're great at this. And it's something sometimes you could never even see or imagine. But that's the beauty of a good old audition and getting to let someone prove themselves that they can do this.
exactly. I think obviously we can't be too quick to judge. I mean, there were so many instances of like people being quick to judge, like, oh, Michael Keaton is going to be terrible as Batman. Chris
Mhm.
Evans, Johnny Storm, he's going to be Captain America. That's going to be terrible. Or
And
Robert
then we
Pattinson
all
is going to
fall
be
in
terrible as
love.
Batman. Ben Affleck is going to be terrible as Batman. Heath Ledger is going to be
Right.
terrible as the Joker. So it's like
Ugh, people
we're
are
all
just
quick
so
to judge.
negative.
Like
Yeah.
people are always so quick to judge, and then they turn out to be amazing. Because that's why I
Right.
can never. That's why I don't want to like. I'm not going to be like Glenn Powell. Like fuck this guy, he can't do it. But the thing is, I'm like I would love to see
Give
him
him a
because
chance.
I think
Yeah.
he's a very good actor. And then if you have like Sydney Sweeney playing Silver St. Cloud or like Vicky Vale, that could work, guys. I'm just saying,
Mhm.
bringing that.
Yeah.
But kidding aside, my friend's personal his personal casting would be him as Green Arrow and then Sydney Sweeney as Black Canary. I'm like, honestly, I could
Oh,
see
I
that a little bit
love Black
more.
Canary.
So he has that
Yeah. Yeah.
Playboy thing,
Yeah.
but he's Green Arrow, so he's more fun, he's more comedic. So personally, I think he would be better as Green Arrow. And
Mhm.
but that's just my opinion. But that's not the only
Yeah.
fan comment we
I think
got.
that's valid.
So somebody was talking about, I think we mentioned Michael Keaton. I think we were talking about sequels the other day. And this guy was saying Batman Returns is the best live adaptation I've ever seen. Well, personally, the reason why it's on the image, I think it's Batman Forever. Like I out of those four original movies, I actually like Batman Forever the most. Because I feel like Val Kilmer is like the perfect adaptation of the Bronze Age Batman. And even though
Mhm.
Jim Carrey is just being Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones is terrible as Two-Face, I think like a lot of the early stuff kind of worked in the film, like how he descends into madness. And then you have like this was the first Batman movie that was about Batman. Like it was about him, like, why am I Batman and why did I do this? So I felt that it did miss it's missing a lot of notes, but Batman 89 was about Jack Nicholson. Batman Returns was
Yeah.
about Catwoman and the Penguin, and to a lesser extent Max Schreck. But like
Yeah.
Batman Forever was about Batman. Like we got, and then less said about Batman and Robin the
Yeah.
better. But we got this like finally this character study of this. And but the thing is, a lot of it was on the cutting floor because they wanted a toy commercial because Warner Brothers are idiots. But I
Mhm.
just think Batman Forever had a lot going for it because we finally got, and but the thing is we didn't really get that again until the Nolan trilogy where we got a
Mhm.
Batman movie about Batman. But even then, Dark Knight, Heath Ledger took all that thunder. So,
I know.
you know,
Thunder from down under.
but that's my personal opinion. I know nobody's gonna agree with me on that, but that's just my personal opinion. I do majorly enjoy Batman Forever. Batman, out of the 4 Batman movies, I gotta say Batman Returns is probably the worst out of all of them. Batman and Robin is fun to laugh at, and Batman 89 has moments, but it's just not Batman Returns, it's not a Batman movie, it's a Tim Burton movie. And as someone who doesn't like Tim
Yeah.
Burton very much,
Oh my
I
gosh.
can't really care for it.
I'm
So
on the
that's what's me.
yeah. I saw the Beetlejuice trailer and I was like, "Ooh, no." My best friend loved Beetlejuice and
Oh
I
yeah.
just don't know what she sees in it, but I've always hated. I mean, I like other Tim Burton movies, but yeah, I didn't honestly don't like
Yeah,
Michael
when
Keaton
he's
either.
you like taking like stuff like relatively seriously, like Big Eyes and Big Fish and Ed Wood, where it's more like it's less his aesthetic, and he's like, oh no, I'm actually gonna like direct a movie instead of like
Yeah.
directing an aesthetic. So that's
Mhm.
the major thing I don't really like about Tim Burton,
Yeah.
is like he's more about his like goth emo tone than
Right,
actually
which
making a good movie, which
like a
I
good
feel like is
you're
most of
right.
his filmography.
I think
I
that's a
know
good
people are gonna
point.
kill me for that,
Sometimes well,
but
no, I think it's valid to say that sometimes the focus becomes so much on the aesthetic that we lose plot and purpose
yeah,
in
exactly.
those.
It just I will say Beetlejuice 2. I refuse to call it the actual name because it's a stupid title. Like,
I would
guys,
rather puke.
you
I
guys,
I
you
hate
had it right there.
Beetlejuice.
Why couldn't you call it Beetlejuicier? Like it was right there.
Yeah.
Beetlejuicier would have been perfect. Like, come on. And then if you made a third movie, it would be
Gosh, yeah.
Beetlejuiciest. Guys, right
If
there.
no,
Fucking
you're just
idiots.
encouraging
Anyway,
them. Don't do it.
but yeah, it's just like a lot of it, like it's like this doesn't look like it doesn't even look like a Tim Burton. It looks like a parody of a Tim Burton movie. Like the CGI
Yeah,
looks
pretty much.
terrible and it just looks like a
Yeah.
joke. And I'm like, and it's so funny because my friend who was like the ultimate Tim Burton superfan is so excited. And I'm like, why are you excited? This doesn't look like what you're into. This looks like a parody of
Yeah,
it. So I don't get
you're
how
right.
you're like
I mean,
into it,
I
but
like I like Tim Burton movies, but I freaking hate Beetlejuice. I have
I
I think
tried
it's one of my
watching it.
least favorite movies.
I
Yeah,
tried watching it and I just couldn't get into it. It was
I don't
just
understand. I just don't get
I
it.
don't
And that's
yeah,
okay.
like that whole scene was just cringeworthy
Like
to me.
if you love Beetlejuice and that's for
Sure.
you, I am so happy for those people, but I
Same
will
here.
never understand.
I don't get it. I don't get it. Like I love Michael Keaton. I like Gina Davis. I mean, I like Alec Baldwin when he doesn't have a gun in his hands. But I will say
Mhm.
I like, a lot of those actors, and I like Winona Ryder. I like Catherine O'Hara,
Yeah,
but it just didn't mesh for me. Sorry, everyone.
yeah.
People are probably
Now,
yelling at
Edward
me in the comments right now.
Scissorhands, I love. I love that movie. We have that on DVD.
Which one is it? Sorry, I missed that.
Edward Scissorhands. I've seen it like a million
Oh,
times.
I've actually never seen Edward Scissorhands.
No, it's a
That's
great
one on the
movie.
list. I know a lot of people love that one. But I have not seen it. I know, I'm sorry. Uh, but before I get too mad talking about Tim Burton too much, the last fan comment we have is from JB1138, who is also an avid watcher and commenter. Said the last video I watched, John, hello, said he wouldn't watch Deadpool and Wolverine because of respect for the Logan film. Having now seen Deadpool and
Mm,
Wolverine, I can say that fully respects the legacy of Logan and how special it truly is. I would disagree with that because I heard the opening scene with the bye 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 sequence, and I would definitely tell you that doesn't respect Logan at all. And as I've said many times, as I seem to keep repeating myself, I'm not seeing Deadpool and Wolverine because it disrespects Logan. It does. I'm don't want to see it because Hugh Jackman Hugh Jackman's swan song was Logan. That was supposed to be it. That was supposed to be the final one. And it's more about Hugh Jackman doing this movie, whether he needed money, wherever he, whatever he needed for this. That's the thing I don't like is like Hugh Jackman coming back for this.
yeah,
Like
I
if it was
understand.
another Wolverine or they came out with this before Logan, I would be totally on board. I'm like, "Oh, this is great." But the fact that like Logan was like the most perfect swan song for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, not Wolverine, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It does, and that's like, according to a lot of people, that's like one of, if not the best Marvel movie ever. So
Mhm.
the fact that it like disrespects like such an amazing movie, I'm just like, I can't bring myself to watch it. I know that may seem silly to a lot of people, but that's just my opinion. But it, again, as we've said, we don't want to yuck a person's yum. I've heard it's a great movie. I'm sure it's a great movie. If you enjoy it, if you watch it, that's fine. I'm not yucking your yum. Don't worry. So, but that's just I just feel like I need to reiterate because I feel like people are not getting what I'm trying to put down. So,
Yeah.
that's
And
just
having seen the film too, I can kind of see both sides. I can see where he's coming from, because at the end you do feel like there is a big like, whoa, Wolverine's really like the one that you feel like they're honoring a bit in a way.
mhm,
But also I understand, like, if you love Wolverine in that way, this is definitely a different version of him. So I think it's fair to say if you liked the version of him, because he kind of riffs off Deadpool and the whole thing is comedy. So
yeah.
if you kind of liked the tone of the films and you don't want to have this new iteration of Wolverine now in your mind, I think that's totally fair. And it's fair to want to kind of preserve what you knew him as instead of seeing him as this new iteration, because that's what he is it's a different iteration in a way, in order to play with the comedy of Ryan
Mhm.
Reynolds. It's going to be different. So yeah, I can see, what you're saying.
So I appreciate that, and I hope a lot of other people are trying to see what
To each
I'm
their
saying in
own.
regards.
Like,
I know. Again, trying not to yuck the yum, I guess, but that's all we have for you today. Kind of a little bit of a rougher stream today, but we hope you still enjoyed watching. And please, I'm usually on that side, but click like, click
oh, it's just got too
notifications,
confusing.
click subscribe, please comment. Hell, even dislike button. Sure, we'll take it. If you hated any of
Nothing.
our takes, then sure. But we still
Let
hope you
us know. We
enjoyed.
like constructive criticism.
Yes, constructive criticism. Don't be an ass. We don't mind constructive criticism. So, we'll you know, we'll try our best. But again, thank you very much for thank you very much for watching. Obviously, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. But we'll hopefully see you tomorrow for the Oh So Curious show. But until then, we will see you then.